Hello, I'm Dilek Tunan. You're watching A News. These are the top stories for the hour. Trump is set to chair the Gaza meeting at the White House on Wednesday. Zelensky says Turkey, the Gulf states or Europe could host talks with Russia. Tianjin gears up to host the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. US President Donald Trump is leading a meeting on Gaza at the White House today. President's envoy Steve Witkoff says Washington expects the conflict to be settled by the end of this year. The US is also stepping up diplomatic contacts as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar in Washington. All this comes after a night of heavy explosions in Gaza, with bright flashes lighting up the sky. Witkoff also said Israel was open to continuing discussions with Hamas. According to him, Hamas had signalled it was open to a settlement. Thousands rallied in Tel Aviv on Tuesday in what organisers called a day of disruption. Families of hostages still held in Gaza led the march, calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to strike a deal with Hamas to end the war and bring their loved ones home. Among those speaking out, a woman who spent 471 days in Gaza as a hostage.
Thousands filled the streets of Tel Aviv, chanting, waving flags and carrying placards with the faces of hostages still held in Gaza. Families led the rally, some breaking down in tears as images of their relatives lit up giant screens. Protesters demanded the government agree to a ceasefire deal with Hamas and secure the return of all captives. Hamas has warned that only a truce can bring the hostages back alive, accusing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of failing to act. For many families, the anguish has become unbearable, urging the government for a ceasefire to bring their loved ones home. Among them is Doron Steinbrecher, freed in January after more than a year in captivity. Two of her closest friends are still being held.
The important thing now is to bring all the hostages home. Every moment, every second, they are in danger. I've been there. I know what they thinking now, what they feeling now, the fear for your life. Every single moment you go to sleep and you don't know if you wake up.
The latest proposal calls for a 60-day ceasefire. 10 hostages and 18 bodies would be handed over in exchange for about 200 Palestinian prisoners. Talks would then move towards a permanent deal and the release of those still missing. Israel believes 50 hostages remain in Gaza, with around only 20 thought to be alive. For their families, every day without an agreement is another day of torment, waiting for news that may never come.
Ukraine is calling on its allies to accelerate work on security guarantees and says it's also open to talks with Russia in neutral countries. But on the ground, the fighting continues, with Ukrainian forces repelling a major Russian push in Dnipropetrovsk.
Potential peace talks with Russia could be hosted by Turkey, the Gulf states or European countries, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In his nightly address, he stressed it is now up to the United States to put pressure on Moscow. Zelensky has repeatedly called for a meeting with Vladimir Putin, though Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov insists no agenda has been prepared.
In the future, everything will depend solely on the will of world leaders, primarily on the United States of America, to put pressure on Russia. New steps are needed, new pressure. Sanctions, tariffs, all this must be on the table. We talked about this with General Kellogg yesterday. We are working with the Americans very thoroughly. After our meeting in Washington, we have a new basis for joint work.
At the same time, Zelensky urged its allies to speed up work on long-term security guarantees. After talks with Britain's Defence Chief Admiral Anthony Radakin on Tuesday, he said clarity and transparency were essential. US President Donald Trump, however, noted Washington has not yet discussed specific guarantees but has reaffirmed America's commitment to support Ukraine. On Monday, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with several European counterparts, including leaders from the UK, Finland and the European Union, to coordinate positions on security guarantees. Both European leaders and Zelensky have asked Rubio to take the lead in negotiations.
And the discussion we had on Thursday night with Trump, maybe the basic spirit was that I tried to gently express that it seems very unlikely that Putin will come to the same table as President Zelensky in particular. Well, a week later on Monday, and we received confirmation of this from Foreign Minister Lavrov, who questioned Zelensky's constitutional position as the leader of Ukraine. And I'm trying to convey the message to Trump all the time that this is typical Russian delaying tactic and they are very skilled at this. And now it's just a matter of time when President Trump will react to this and in what way.
Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Ukrainian forces confirmed that Russia has crossed into the eastern Dnipropetrovsk region. Commanders described it as the first assault of such scale in the area, but said the advance was halted. Moscow has long claimed progress in this direction, yet Kiev insists Russian troops have barely moved beyond the regional border.
Donald Trump says he's prepared to impose economic sanctions against Russia if Vladimir Putin fails to agree to a ceasefire, warning of serious consequences. Speaking in Washington, the US president warned he would rather pursue what he called an economic war rather than risk a world war. Trump insisted he wants the war to end and urged both Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky to come to the table. Washington is hosting a high-level economic discussion between the United States and China. A senior Chinese delegation is in the capital this week, aiming to ease trade tensions and build on earlier rounds of negotiations. The talks come as both sides extend a fragile tariff truce through to November, giving industries brief relief. Manur Mahdoum has more from Beijing.
A senior Chinese trade delegation led by Li Changgang is traveling to Washington this week to reopen the U.S.-China trade talks, marking the highest-level Chinese economic visit to the U.S. since 2023. The visit follows previous rounds of negotiations held in Geneva, London, and most recently Stockholm, where both sides sought to extend the current pause on tariffs and build momentum for deeper engagement. The visit also comes amid a fresh 90-day pause on tariffs, which maintains U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods at 30% and Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods at 10%. This tariff truce, which is set to last through November 10th, follows a series of escalations earlier this year under a sweeping retaliatory measures, which were rolled back after the Geneva talks in May. This extension provides temporary relief to U.S. retail and toys, as well as Chinese electronics, machinery, and critical mineral markets such as rare earths. Manu Makhtar, A-News, Beijing.
Tianjin is finalising preparations to host the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, which focuses on maintaining regional security and development. The city says it's upgraded infrastructure, improved public services and introduced cultural and logistical enhancements to ensure a smooth and successful event for international delegations.
Leaders from Africa, Asia and Europe will be meeting up in China's northern port city of Tianjin at the end of the month for the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The gathering aims to review past cooperation, chart future strategies for the next decade for development and regional security, as well as adopt key documents. These include the Tianjin Declaration and a 10-year roadmap through to 2035. In readiness for the summit, the city has carried out a wide range of logistical and cultural upgrades, from enhancing international service facilities to introducing SCO-themed decorations. At rail transit stations, English directional signs have been standardized, and multilingual translation equipment has been installed to assist visiting delegations.
We have posted pictures of the SCO on the light boxes, passenger information system screens and theme trains. We have set up multilingual translation machines at 63 core stations, which can support translation in over 40 languages.
Authorities have also strengthened traffic and public services using data and dynamic deployment to ensure smooth travel. Tianjin Railway Station is enhancing real-time monitoring and contingency plans to manage passenger flows, while the Power Department has introduced intelligent patrols, robots, and infrared detectors to guarantee reliable electricity supply.
After months of work in a meticulous and orderly manner, the preparatory tasks covering thousands of items in 10 sections, including environmental improvement, venue optimization, atmosphere creation, cultural and artistic display, meeting service, guest reception, and volunteer service, have all been completed.
This year's SCO Summit will gather leaders from more than 20 countries and representatives of 10 international organizations, making it the most extensive meeting in the group's history and highlighting the organization's expanding global influence.
Spain's government has declared 16 regions as disaster zones after the country battled massive wildfires that officials called the greatest environment catastrophes in recent years. Authorities say the move will unlock aid for residents, businesses and local councils to help rebuild the areas.
The Spanish government has declared municipalities affected by the 113 wildfires this summer as emergency areas. Blazes that flared across the country this summer, particularly in the west of the country, have ravaged more than 400,000 hectares, killed 4 people, and forced thousands to temporarily evacuate from their homes. Officials are calling it one of the greatest environmental catastrophes in recent years and say it is too early to assess the full impact of the burned areas.
To give you an idea of the magnitude of the tragedy, the declaration of areas affected by a civil protection emergency covers 16 Spanish regions. Although the emergency episode has not concluded, as I have pointed out, it is clear that we are facing one of the greatest environmental catastrophes of recent years.
The government's move to classify the affected areas as emergency zones will unlock direct aid, tax breaks and other assistance for communities. Much of southern Europe is experiencing one of its worst wildfire seasons in 2 decades. The blazes, which began during a 2-week heat wave, have burned through the largest area in Spain since records began in 2006.
After the break, we'll discuss security guarantees for Ukraine with Andrei Schwartz, geopolitical analyst from Bulgaria. Stay with us.
Welcome to Afghanistan in the summer of 2025.
It's been 4 years since the Taliban came back to power in Afghanistan.
The biggest achievement, obviously, is ending the occupation of Afghanistan. We will strive towards, after 50 years of conflict, to turn Afghanistan into a hub of cooperation amongst the many stakeholders.
When the previous Western-backed government collapsed, thousands in the country scrambled, fleeing in fear of persecution.
دولت فقط می تقاضا را داریم که کم کار زیاد کنه، جوانا در کار مشغول شوند دیگه شوند تا اصلا مجبور نشن برن به دیگه جای مسافرت کنن یا اوج سختی ها را طی کنن.
Mostly maybe the media's telling something about the Afghanistan, about the fight, but they shouldn't believe such a thing.
There are projects to kickstart the economy in the works. The Turkmenistan-Afghanistan-Pakistan-India gas pipeline is one of them.
We're also working diligently with our counterparts in Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan and Turkey to realize the Lapis Lazuli route.
We're here at the Port Torgundi in Afghanistan's western province of Herat. This is one of two starting points of the Lapis Lazuli corridor, the other one being in the north of the country.
بدون هر قدر ترانزیت یا مسیر راه‌های انتقالی بیشتر شه، این موثرتر برای اقتصاد کشور.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Hello, welcome back to A News. In what is being described as a novel proposal, a new model of security guarantees for Ukraine is reportedly under consideration. At its core, this framework envisages a three-tiered structure aimed at securing Ukrainian territory while avoiding direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. According to reports, the first layer would entail a demilitarized zone to be monitored by neutral peacekeepers acceptable to both Kiev and Moscow. And behind this zone, Ukrainian forces armed and trained by NATO would constitute the second line of defence. And a third tier, described as a European-led deterrence force with backing from the United States, would be positioned deeper within Ukrainian territory. Joining us now to discuss is Andrei Schwartz, geopolitical analyst from Sofia, Bulgaria. Andrei, welcome. Now, in the absence of unanimous public support across Western societies for sending troops to Ukraine, how likely is it that a principal agreement on deploying reassurance forces can be reached, particularly given the fear of border spillover or escalation with Russia?
A very important question and something that is on the mind of leaders of European nations, of the United States, as well as citizens, as you've correctly hinted at. And so this is what this three-layered approach to the security of Ukraine post a ceasefire agreement or a peace agreement might provide. So as you've mentioned in the intro, the first layer would be provided by a party which is agreeable to both Russia and Ukraine. And that reduces it to a number of factors, including one which Azerbaijan is an important part of, the Organization of Turkic States, as well as the Gulf Cooperation Organization. And possibly another name which was presented over the last few days was China. I would say that one of the two first options that we've mentioned now is more likely to be, on the bingo card of both countries, of both Russia and Ukraine. This is the first layer. The second layer is composed of Ukrainian forces. And this is really what is the most important layer, the one which would be the last line of defense, really, for Ukraine. The third layer is similar to the first layer. It's more of a symbolic layer. Up until this moment, this is what it looks like. one of commitment to peace from others, not only from Ukraine and Russia. And this layer would be composed of European states, part of the coalition of the willing, supported by the United States as well, with aerial support, with information support, and possibly also with strike support, primarily aerial support, but also land support from the bases in Poland, in Germany, Italy, and beyond. So the risk of spillover is obviously on the minds of everyone involved in all layers presented before. Everyone will want to avoid a direct confrontation with Russia, which is why this plan is likely to fail. In case Russia is interested at one point in the future in launching another attack on Ukraine, this is exactly the fault point, the fact that all countries will try to avoid getting into the war with Russia. So ultimately, as with everything in life, it's not only a matter of preparedness and of muscle, but really of where the mind and soul is as well, whether you are ready to commit to something which is principled, which is right from a moral standpoint, whether that risks you getting bruised or not. So this is really on the minds of everyone, and this three-layered plan is just an idea at this point.
Okay, and meanwhile, Andrei, on the battlefield itself, Ukraine appears to be pursuing its own pressure tactics. Overnight, Ukrainian drones reportedly struck targets in Russia's Rostov region, the very area from which many logistical operations into occupied Ukrainian territory are launched. Now, to what extent can such strikes, however limited they may be, contribute to making Moscow more amenable to negotiation?
I think President Trump said it very well last week. You cannot win a war or force a ceasefire, at least, or a peace accord, unless you inflict damage to the enemy who's launched such an invasion, such a war onto your country. You need to do that. So this is what Ukraine has been doing well for the past year or so. Including in the areas of Russia where they moved forces by land. And this will likely put a bit more pressure on Russia. The problem is that up until the people in Moscow and St. Petersburg feel that their children are at risk, which is not what has been happening for the past 3.5 years. It was mostly people from the minorities, from the autonomous regions of Russia, from Siberia and beyond, which were sent to the front and killed and maimed in this attempt to destroy Ukraine. Up until that point, it's unlikely that they will put pressure, meaningful pressure, on Putin and his group to cease, and this is from this plan. So I highly encourage the Ukrainian forces to continue inflicting damage on the Russian soil itself. I think this is what any country in a similar situation should be doing, regardless of the enemy. But is it enough to get Putin more amenable towards a ceasefire, as you've nicely put it? I do not know. I think it's really up to the United States, to the Trump administration, to put a lot more pressure. Tariffs have kicked in, starting today, onto India for the fact that they've continued purchasing oil and gas from Russia. So this is the type of pressure that will also help convince Putin that it's time to call it quits. Is it enough to then be relaxed on the Ukrainian side, that Russia has stopped with its ambitions of destroying Ukrainian independence. I do not think so. I think this is why they need to be cautious. They need to be supported by the US and the other countries, by European countries, in securing the front and in strengthening their armed forces to prepare for the next time either Putin or someone else who will replace him naturally or otherwise, sooner or later, they might want to do the same, or they might want to, via hybrid active measures, put there a puppet regime in place.
And Andrei, how realistic is it to deploy neutral peacekeepers acceptable to both Kiev and Moscow to monitor a demilitarized zone?
I think the success of these attempts, were quite shallow in producing results, isn't it? You've seen it also in your region. We've seen it in the Middle East. We've seen it in other areas. We've seen it. There were some successes, between Serbia and Kosovo, for example, and in other parts. But in general, these efforts, as I was hinting at in the preamble to our conversation today, were destined for failure, whether they were United Nations deployments or whether they were other types of deployments, because the country which is supposed to provide forces, or the coalition of countries that is supposed to provide forces that will secure the buffer zone and the agreement, will always be wary of risking, the flesh and blood of their own in a conflict between two parties to this war. Whether it's on a temporary basis for a few years, and if all hints, all intelligence point towards Russia restraining her ambitions, then this will be successful simply because it will not be tested by Russia. Once Russia, or if Russia is determined to again start military attacks of one type or another, this will be the moment where the test of truth will be deployed, and we'll see the reaction of the buffer zone coalition in one way or another.
Okay. And lastly, Andrei, what role does the coalition of the willing play? Can it translate into an effective peacekeeping or deterrence force?
It's mostly a deterrence force to the side which was attacked really at this point. I do not think that deterrence by a third party, especially if it's not the United States or NATO, will mean much to the ambitions of either Putin or, as I was suggesting, any leader that will take over from him. Russia has not shown such restraint in the past, and I do not think that it will show such restraint in the future. That being said, again, countries of the Turkic coalition and organization, or the Gulf cooperation partners, are countries which Russia does not want to be on the wrong side of, for commercial, especially for commercial reasons. And also because Russia is trying to co-opt these countries into a coalition which will change the balance of power versus Western countries. So they will not want to be on the wrong side of Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkey primarily. If those will be the countries that will agree to such a mandate, and they will be accepted by the two parties.
Okay, Andrei, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much.
Now, after the break, we'll look at key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
ready to welcome everyone to come to Gabela and to make unforgettable memories.
Welcome to Gabala rafting.
This territory is the most important place in our history. Our ancestors lived here 2,000 years ago, and they had here amazing culture, amazing civilization.
There's something for everyone here. This place is the largest amusement park in Azerbaijan.
Our guests love to have meal in this atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, you see you're in nature, in the forest, and the good food.
It's 6 tons, 579 liters. And it's a lot of wine. Biggest cask in the world.
Bandar is not just a holiday destination. It's a symbol of Azerbaijan's growing tourism potential.
The doors are open. Welcome to Gabala, Azerbaijan.
Welcome back to A News. Now we'll take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. China and Saudi Arabia look set to strengthen their trade and investment cooperation as they meet in Beijing to align the Belt and Road Initiative with Vision 2030. It's after negotiations for a free trade agreement had stalled over concerns from the Gulf Cooperation Council that China could flood the market with cheap goods.
Beijing hosted high-level dialogue on Tuesday as officials and state-owned enterprises from China and Saudi Arabia met to align China's Belt and Road Initiative with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. The session marked a significant step in strengthening bilateral cooperation, with business leaders and policymakers from both countries exploring new avenues for economic and trade partnerships.
The Belt and Road Initiative and Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 are deeply integrated, driving practical economic and trade cooperation between the two countries to a new level. China is Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner, while Saudi Arabia has for many years remained China's top trading partner in the Arab region. In the first half of this year, bilateral trade reached $53.9 billion.
The dialogue focused on key areas such as manufacturing, renewable energy, and the digital economy, highlighting opportunities for sustainable growth. Saudi Vision 2030, which aims to diversify the kingdom's economy beyond oil, was identified as complementary to China's global infrastructure and investment strategies.
We are a main contributor to a lot of activities in the contracting industry and in the manufacturing and trading activities. We remain dedicated in supporting whatever activities between both countries, in ensuring both visions are achieved, with any financial support needed from our side.
Participants described the discussions as a model for how global initiatives and national strategies can converge to create long-term economic benefits. Both sides agreed that closer alignment between the BRI and Vision 2030 would help sustain growth and strengthen trade and investment ties for years to come.
Azerbaijan's relations with the US President Donald Trump's administration are completely different from those with Biden's. President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, said this during an interview with Al Arabiya TV channel. Aliyev expressed confidence that Trump could restore America's global admiration and bring peace to many regions.
With Biden administration, it was zero. It was a disaster. So Trump is absolutely different. He is a person which not only, I'm sure, will make America again great, he will make America again to be admired, as we all did in all times, when America was a symbol of prosperity, of freedom, of development. He will do it, I'm sure. If he managed in 6 months to bring peace to so many locations, he will do it, but he has a strong resistance. The system is against him. And also what I'd like to underline, especially what touched me, was how he behaved during that assassination attempt. That cannot be played. No speechwriter, no political advisor can do it. That's how the person reacts. He's a brave man and great leader, and I am proud, really proud, that he treats me as a friend.
Iran reaffirmed support for the 3+3 format in the South Caucasus, with spokesman Ismail Bagay noting it unites regional states with Russia, Turkey and Iran. He stressed that the format helps to resolve disputes, especially between Armenia and Azerbaijan, while limiting interference from outside powers. Bagay added that regional countries agree the platform should remain active and its effectiveness strengthened. Earlier, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian told Russia's Vladimir Putin that the 3+3 remains the most effective way to address challenges in the South Caucasus. Germany will resume admitting vulnerable Afghans stranded in Pakistan after months of delay, a foreign ministry official said on Tuesday. Around 2,000 Afghans approved for relocation to Germany have been left in limbo after Berlin froze admissions under its protection program. The suspension sparked lawsuits, with advocacy groups now saying families who won court rulings will soon fly on commercial flights. Germany's Interior Ministry insists only those with binding approvals will be accepted after individual reviews and security checks, while exit permits from Pakistan remain necessary. Pakistan is pressing ahead with mass evacuations of people in the Punjab province, where relentless monsoon rains have already displaced thousands of families. Authorities warn that more bad weather is due over the coming weeks, which could cause dams and rivers to overflow.
Pakistan continues to grapple with devastating floods as hundreds of thousands of people are forced to leave their homes. More than 150,000 have been displaced in the country's Punjab province, where intense monsoon rains have ravaged communities in recent weeks. The Sutlej River has reached a high flood level, prompting authorities to issue a high alert for the region.
Currently, the river's water flow stands at 122,000 cusecs, indicating a high flood level. However, many residents remain hesitant to leave their homes. We're prioritising voluntary evacuations, providing transport services to those who want to relocate. So far, we've assisted over 5,000 people and evacuated more than 800 cattle. We're not resorting to forced evacuations at this time, focusing on supporting those who choose to leave.
The release of excess water from neighbouring India's dams threatens to further flood parts of Punjab, which serves as the country's breadbasket and is home to half of its 240 million people. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority said it had issued an advance alert to officials. Evacuations of people from the area are underway in several eastern districts of the province. The authority also warned that heavy rainfall was forecast across several Indian states, which could swell rivers and streams flowing into Pakistan. Authorities say floods across the country have killed 785 people since the monsoon began in late June and warn of 2 more rain spells before the 10th of September.
Almaty has been facing one of its most serious environmental challenges for years: air pollution. Kazakhstan's largest city ranks among the world's most polluted, seriously affecting the health of millions of residents. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina reports from Almaty with the details.
Almaty has been struggling with consistently high air pollution levels for the past decade. Monitoring shows that from 2015 to 2024, 9 out of 10 years recorded the city's air quality as heavily polluted, with only 2017 classified as moderately elevated. Earlier this year, the Swiss air quality company IQ Air ranked Almaty as the world's most polluted major city in real time. According to the Climate Change and Green Energy Project Office for Central Asia, over 2.3 million residents are exposed daily to air containing toxic substances beyond safe limits. The city's location worsens the issue. Situated in a basin at the foot of the Ilya-Latau Mountains, natural airflow is limited. Mountain and valley winds trap pollutants, especially in the northern areas. Also, uncontrolled large-scale construction over the last 20 years has only compounded the problem, with thick smoke blanketing the city for more than 6 months each year. Experts identify the main pollution sources as vehicle emissions, coal and wood heating in private homes on the outskirts, and emissions from 3 major thermal power plants. Heating with stoves adds particulate matter and toxic gases. Environmental specialists agreed that addressing this issue requires a comprehensive strategy. Key measures include upgrading transport infrastructure, transitioning to cleaner fuels, tightening emission controls on power plants, and expanding gas supply to suburban neighborhoods. Also, regular monitoring and timely public updates about air quality are crucial to minimize health risks. Air pollution in Almaty is not only an environmental challenge, but also a social one affecting millions of lives. And new technologies and stricter environmental regulations are expected to be introduced this year to help improve the situation. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Turkey faces a severe drought that is impacting water resources, with shrinking reservoirs and shortages affecting daily life, agriculture and industry. Officials are calling for urgent sustainable water management and emergency action. Our correspondent Aliya Aziz reports.
Turkey is dealing with an ongoing nationwide drought. New analysis from the European Space Agency's Sentinel-2 satellites show soil moisture has dropped sharply nationwide this year. The findings confirm that rivers, reservoirs, and farmlands are drying fast. The Turkish State Meteorological Service provides interactive drought maps that show how much rainfall has occurred across Turkey compared to long-term norms. These maps highlight short and long-term drought trends by region, helping with water and agricultural planning. Experts stress that climate change is the driving force, and adaptation can't wait. Professor Şenol Hakan Kurtoğlu of Zonguldak Bülent Ecevit University points to both agricultural and urban solutions, shifting to less water-demanding crops, planting drought-resistant species, installing green roofs, and introducing rainwater collection systems to capture rainfall. On the ground, reservoirs are sinking fast. Nationwide active storage has fallen to 42%, forcing major cities onto alert. In Istanbul, dam levels are 11% lower than last year, leading to less than 120 days of drinking water. Officials are already considering rotating cuts and restrictions. Turkey's capital Ankara is even more severe. Reservoirs are 19% full, but with only 8.5% usable, experts warn Ankara may face a crisis before Istanbul. In Izmir, the Tahtali Dam has dropped under 7%. Supply cuts have tightened from every 5 days to every 3, while some neighborhoods are already without regular water. And in Bursa, the Nilüfer Dam has completely dried up, while Doğancı Dam holds just over a month's supply. Officials stress that demand management, fixing leaks, lowering pressure at night, and urging the public to save water can buy time, but without urgent adaptation, Turkey may face its harshest urban water crisis in decades. For A News, this is Aliya Aziz, Istanbul, Turkey.
After the break, we'll discuss the 3+3 regional platform and its perspectives with Orkan Nabiev, political analyst from Baku. Stay with us.
Welcome to Afghanistan in the summer of 2025.
It's been 4 years since the Taliban came back to power in Afghanistan.
The biggest achievement, obviously, is ending the occupation of Afghanistan. We will strive towards, after 50 years of conflict, to turn Afghanistan into a hub of cooperation amongst the many stakeholders.
When the previous Western-backed government collapsed, thousands in the country scrambled, fleeing in fear of persecution.
دولت فقط می تقاضا را داریم که کم کار زیاد کنه، جوانا در کار مشغول شوند دیگه شوند تا اصلا مجبور نشن برن به دیگه جای مسافرت کنن یا اوج سختی ها را طی کنن.
Mostly maybe the media's telling something about the Afghanistan, about the fight, but they shouldn't believe such a thing.
There are projects to kickstart the economy in the works. The Turkmenistan-Afghanistan-Pakistan-India gas pipeline is one of them.
We're also working diligently with our counterparts in Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey to realize the Lapis Lazuli route.
We're here at the Port Torgundi in Afghanistan's western province of Herat. This is one of two starting points of the Lapis Lazuli corridor, the other one being in the north of the country.
بدون هر قدر ترانزیت یا مسیر راه‌های انتقالی بیشتر شه، این موثرتر برای اقتصاد کشور.
Welcome back. You're watching A News. As regional diplomacy in the South Caucasus evolves, attention has returned to the once touted 3+3 format. This follows a recent exchange between Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Russian President Vladimir Putin, during which Tehran reaffirmed its support for the initiative. Some observers suggest that the matter could be formally raised again during the forthcoming Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, set to take place in late August, early September. To discuss this now, joining us is Orkan Nabiev, political analyst from Baku. Orkan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting.
Now, does this 3+3 format genuinely function as a vehicle for regional cooperation, or has it become a largely more symbolic framework?
Personally, I think that if we will look to what's going on, and for the last years, the dynamics, it's a mostly show than the real work. So it is mostly the optic reviewing instead of it's not an architecture, because we didn't see any kind of the improving by Iran and Russia. We don't see that the Northwest are building, and we didn't see that Iran started constructing the Resht-Astara road. So it's mostly show, it's mostly photos, it's mostly rhetorics, but not real governance. And mostly it's 3+3 doesn't work. It's mostly 3+2 because Georgia won't join to this initiative because of the Russian occupation of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. At the same time, we see that Iran became weak, and Russia is like in the swamp in Ukraine. So no one wants to work really with Russia. And we saw that all the dynamics and between Azerbaijan and Russia is also going down. And personally, I don't believe that it will be more than photos and rhetorics.
Okay. And Orkan, could China, not a formal member, seek to attach itself in some auxiliary role?
China has a good position in this region. China's one road, one belt policy works. It's a part of the Silk Road. So for China, it's important that the East-West road function. China doesn't care about North-South stream, North-South road. So for China's perspective, that Zangezur corridor, or the trip, how we now call it, for China it's important this road would function, and at the same time other roads would be open, because we know that Azerbaijan will have a connection to Turkey not only through the Zangezur corridor. It will be Kazakh-Ijevan road. We see that the importance of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railroad is also gaining the more possibilities, more opportunities. And for China, it's important that East-West, West-East road function, not North-South. So for China, is it okay right now?
More pointedly, Orkan, critics argue that this model affords Iran and Russia's outsized influence in regional affairs, potentially to the detriment of Turkey's increasingly assertive post-2020 role in the South Caucasus. How does this balance of power appear today?
The balance of the power changed a lot, and above all, that it changed after the Israel and United States attack on Iran, on the Tehran and other big cities, and everyone saw that Iran is not such strong as it used to show itself. At the same time, we saw that many other actors in the region saw that Russia is not capable to move forward. So now, in this case, in this situation, the only thing that Russia really needs this road, but Iran has no any resources, any economic power, any will. At the same time, we see that in Iran there is a big conflict, internal conflict between mullahs and the official regime. And mostly I predict that these countries, Russia and Iran, will be fragmented, and they will have the internal conflicts that they will gain the possibilities to renew their economy and develop.
And what tangible projects, transport corridors, trade facilitation, energy cooperation, could the 3+3 realistically deliver?
It could be when after the 2020, it could be even though like after 2023, but as we see now, it's impossible that 3+3 gonna work. So it will not work. It will be only the photos and as I said, the rhetorics. Energy, if we will talk about the energy, Central Asian countries is more interested on investing the transporting, like exporting their energy through Azerbaijan to Europe, and the route Europe, Central Asia route China, Europe, gonna function for energy resources transportation. It's gonna work for goods transportation, and but 3+3 it will not work eventually. Maybe after 10 years there will be some initiations, but right now it will not be possible.
So do you see the platform evolving then into something more institutionalized, or will it remain an ad hoc forum just for dialogue?
It will be an ad hoc forum for the dialogue. It's nothing institutionalization right now, because for institutionalization, first of all, we need to have an infrastructure or interest on investing in an infrastructure. But we see that no Iran and neither Iran nor Russia want to invest because they don't have resources to invest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Orkan, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We appreciate your participation.
Thank you for inviting me.
And that's all we have from Baku for now. These were the updates for the hour. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.